This banned film from 1994 contains occult secrets so carefully hidden that most people watched it 20 times and never saw them. Wait, banned? Yes. Pulp Fiction was rejected, condemned, and nearly destroyed before it ever reached theaters. The studio didn't want it. The censors didn't want it. The moral guardians of America didn't want it. Because somewhere, someone understood what Tarantino was really doing. This isn't a film about hitmen and hamburgers. It isn't a film about drugs and violence and cool dialogue. Those are the shadows on the wall. The real film is underneath. Hidden in the structure, hidden in the names, hidden in the numbers, hidden in plain sight for 30 years. Today we're pulling back the curtain. 10 occult secrets in Pulp Fiction that will change the way you see this film forever. Subscribe to the channel. This is Occult Cinema, where the screen is the sigil. Let's begin. Before we dive in, here's what you need to know. Pulp Fiction was released in 1994, written and directed by Quentin Tarantino. It follows multiple interconnected stories set in the Los Angeles criminal underworld. On the surface, it's a crime film, a very stylish, very violent, very quotable crime film. But Tarantino is not just a filmmaker, he's an obsessive, a student of cinema, literature, mythology, and symbolism. Every choice in this film is deliberate, every detail is loaded, every name, every number, every object carries weight. He's also a foot guy. Yeah, we will get to that later. This is a film about grace, about second chances, about the thin line between damnation and salvation, about what happens when the universe speaks and you either listen or you don't. And it's been hiding its deepest secrets in plain sight for 30 years. Let's start with the structure itself. The non-linear structure. Pulp Fiction doesn't begin at the beginning. It doesn't end at the end. It moves backwards and forwards through time in a way that initially feels like style, like Tarantino showing off, like a director being clever. What the non-linear structure of Pulp Fiction is actually is a spiritual map, a cosmological statement, a coded message about the nature of time, karma, and fate. In linear storytelling, time moves in one direction. Cause leads to effect, action leads to consequence. The hero makes a choice and lives or dies by it. This is the Newtonian universe. Predictable, mechanical, dead. But Tarantino's universe doesn't work that way. In Pulp Fiction, time is circular. Events echo each other across the timeline. Characters make choices that ripple forward and backward simultaneously. The ending is the beginning. The beginning is the middle. Everything is happening at once. This is the Buddhist concept of dependent origination. Nothing exists independently. Everything arises in relationship to everything else. The hitman's choice in the diner affects the boxer's choice. In the pawn shop affects the crime boss's choice in the basement. Not through linear causation, through karmic resonance, and the wheel of samsara turns through the entire film. Characters are trapped in cycles they can't see. Vincent Vega makes the same mistakes over and over. He's given signs. He ignores them. He's given chances. He wastes them. He's trapped in his own loop, his own karma, his own blindness. But Jules sees the wheel. Jules feels it turning, and Jules decides to step off. The non-linear structure also mirrors the tarot. The major arcana doesn't move in a straight line. The fool's journey is circular. You end where you began but transformed. You return to zero, but you're not the same zero you started as. And there's something else. The film begins and ends in the same diner. The same moment, the same robbery. But experienced from different perspectives. Different levels of consciousness. At the beginning of the film, Jules is a killer. At the end of the film, Jules is something else entirely. Same diner, same moment, different soul. This is the secret of the structure. Tarantino isn't playing with time for style. He's showing you that transformation doesn't happen in time, it happens outside of time, in the eternal moment of choice, in the space between the bullet and the body, in the gap between who you were and who you decide to become. The structure is the message. Time is an illusion. Karma is real, and every moment contains the seed of every other moment. The briefcase. What's in the briefcase? This is the question that has haunted Pulp Fiction for 30 years. The golden glow, the combination 666. The way every person who opens it reacts with awe and longing and terror. The way Jules and Vincent treat it like sacred cargo. Tarantino has never answered the question directly. And that's the point. Because the briefcase is a MacGuffin, a narrative device that drives the plot without ever being defined. Hitchcock invented the term, and the briefcase is its purest expression. But the occult reading goes much deeper than narrative mechanics. The briefcase contains a soul. Specifically, it contains Marcellus Wallace's soul. Look at the evidence. Marcellus has a bandage on the back of his neck. In folklore, in Faustian legend, in occult tradition, The soul lives at the base of the skull, at the back of the neck, the place where the spine meets the brain, the place where the physical and the spiritual connect. Marcellus made a deal, a Faustian bargain. He sold his soul for power, for control of the Los Angeles underworld, for his kingdom, and the soul was extracted, packaged, stored in a briefcase with a combination of 666, and now he wants it back. This is the oldest story in the world. The king who sold his soul and spent his reign trying to recover it. The man who traded his humanity for power and discovered that power without soul is just a very expensive cage. The golden glow inside the briefcase is the light of the divine, the light of the true self, the light that Marcellus traded away and can never quite get back. Because you can retrieve the briefcase, you can hold it in your hands, but you can't just put a soul back. It doesn't work that way. And everyone who opens the briefcase is transfixed by that light. Because it's not just Marcellus's soul they're seeing, it's the reflection of their own, the reminder of what they traded away to be in this world, to be in this life, to be in this underworld. The briefcase is the Grail, the sacred object at the center of the quest, the thing everyone wants but nobody knows how to use, the thing that reveals your true nature the moment you look into it. And Jules carries it. Jules, who is about to have his entire understanding of reality shattered by a miracle. Jules carries the soul of his boss through the streets of Los Angeles, not knowing what he's carrying, not knowing that the light in that briefcase is about to become the light in his own chest. The briefcase is the soul, and the soul is always trying to find its way home. 666. The combination to the briefcase is 666. Tarantino put it there deliberately, and once you see it, you start seeing sixes everywhere. This is the devil's playground, and Tarantino left his fingerprints all over it. 666 is the number of the beast, the number of the Antichrist in the Book of Revelation, the number of imperfection, of the material world cut off from the divine. 6 is the number of man, created on the sixth day, bound to the material, bound to the flesh, bound to the ego. 3 sixes, the trinity of the material world. Father, Son, Holy Spirit inverted. Creator, preserver, destroyer corrupted. The sacred number 3 turned against itself. But here's the deeper occult reading. In Kabbalistic numerology, 666 is the number of Sorath, the solar demon, the shadow of the sun, the false light, the counterfeit divine. Not the darkness that opposes the light, but the darkness that pretends to be the light. And that's exactly what Marcellus Wallace's world is. It looks like power. It looks like freedom. It looks like the good life. Beautiful women, expensive suits, respect, control. But it's the false light, the counterfeit divine, the solar demon's kingdom, and the sixes keep appearing. The apartment where the miracle happens is apartment 4, but the building address contains sixes. The diner scenes are loaded with numerical references that reduce to 6. Tarantino hides them in plain sight, in license plates, in addresses, in timestamps. Because this entire world is operating under the sign of the beast. Every character is living in the devil's playground, making devil's bargains, trading soul for comfort, trading grace for cool, and most of them don't even know it. Vincent doesn't know it. He's too busy being cool, too busy enjoying the ride, too busy eating his hamburger and shooting his heroin and being the most stylish man in every room he enters. But Jules knows it. Jules feels it. Jules has been living in 666 his whole career. And when the miracle happens, when the bullets miss, when the universe reaches into the devil's playground and says, "Not today," Jules recognizes it for what it is. The beast's number is on the briefcase, but the divine light is inside it. That's the paradox. That's the secret. The sacred is always hidden inside the profane. The light is always inside the darkness. The soul is always inside the cage. You just have to know where to look. The names. Tarantino is obsessed with names. And in Pulp Fiction, every name is a transmission. Every nickname is an occult signature. Every character announces their archetype the moment you hear what they're called. Let's start with the nicknames. Honey Bunny. This is what Pumpkin calls his girlfriend during the diner robbery. Honey Bunny. Sweet, domestic, soft, but she's pointing a gun at a room full of people and screaming. The name is the mask. The honey and the bunny are the persona. The rage and the gun are the shadow. She's the domesticated wild animal. The sweetness that conceals the danger. The feminine tamed by love, but never fully contained by it. Pumpkin. The harvest symbol. The autumn fruit. The thing that looks full and round and abundant, but is hollow inside. Carved into a face, lit from within by a candle that will burn out. Pumpkin thinks he's the king of the diner. He thinks he's in control. He's the fool who doesn't know he's the fool. The harvest that doesn't know it's about to be reaped. The wolf. Harvey Keitel. The fixer. The one who appears when everything has gone wrong and makes it right. The wolf is Hermes, the messenger between worlds. The psychopomp who guides souls through dangerous territory. He moves between the underworld and the surface world with perfect ease. He doesn't panic. He doesn't judge. He solves. Because Hermes doesn't have a moral position, he has a function, and his function is to move things from where they are to where they need to be. Butch. Not a nickname. A declaration. Butch is what you name a boy when you want him to be tough, when you want him to be hard, when you want him to be a man before he knows what that means. Butch is masculine aggression as identity. The name is armor. The name is prison. And the entire arc of Butch Coolidge is the story of a man discovering that his name is a cage. That true honor has nothing to do with being Butch. The gimp, the named slave, the identity stripped to function. He has no other name, no history, no story. He is what he does, what is done to him. The shadow given a title. The most disturbing character in the film precisely because he has been reduced to a single word, a single purpose, a single terrible function. Now the real names with occult etymology. Marcellus, derived from Mars, the Roman god of war, the red planet, the planet of aggression, conflict, and masculine force. Marcellus Wallace is Mars incarnate, the god of war running the Los Angeles underworld. His name tells you exactly what he is, the king of conflict, the lord of the battlefield, the deity of destruction wearing a suit. Mia. In Latin and Italian, Mia means mine, possessive. She belongs to Marcellus. She is his possession, his trophy, his queen in the underworld kingdom. But Mia is also the goddess archetype, the feminine divine trapped in the material world, owned by the god of war. And her overdose and resurrection is the goddess's death and rebirth, the eternal feminine cycle playing out in a Los Angeles apartment. And then there's Zed, the last letter of the alphabet. In British English, Z is Zed. The end. The final thing. The last word. And Zed is the last thing Butch encounters in the underworld. The final obstacle, the final darkness. And when Butch escapes, when Butch chooses to go back for Marcellus, Zed's fate is sealed. Zed's dead, baby. Zed's dead. The end is dead. The last letter has been crossed out. The alphabet of the underworld is complete, and Butch can finally begin. Names are spells. In every occult tradition, to name something is to define it, to limit it, to give it power. Tarantino knows this. Every name in Pulp Fiction is a spell, and the film is the ritual that activates them. Marcellus in the basement. Marcellus Wallace is the king of the underworld. Not metaphorically, literally. He rules Los Angeles from the shadows. He controls the fighters, the dealers, the fixers, the killers. He is the demiurge of this world, the false god of the material realm, the one who makes the rules, who decides who lives and who dies, who owns the souls of everyone in his orbit. And his kingdom has a basement. The pawn shop basement is the inferno, the lowest point, the place where the darkest things happen, where Zed and Maynard keep the gimp, where they take Marcellus and Butch, where the shadow of the underworld reveals its true face. Because here's the secret. Marcellus is the king of the underworld. But even kings can be dragged to the basement. Even the demiurge can be humiliated. Even the false god can be stripped of his power and reduced to something helpless and human. And this is the occult truth of the basement scene. It's not just violence. It's not just darkness for darkness's sake. It's the revelation of the shadow beneath the shadow, the darkness beneath the darkness, the thing that even the king of the underworld fears. Zed and Maynard are the gatekeepers of the lowest level of hell. They're not in Marcellus's organization. They're not part of his world. They exist beneath it, in the space below the underworld, in the place that even the devil doesn't control. And the gimp is their creation, their slave, their shadow made flesh, named for his function, reduced to his purpose, the ultimate expression of what happens when a human being is completely consumed by the system, when the persona becomes the only reality, when the mask fuses to the face. But something extraordinary happens in the basement. Butch and Marcellus are enemies. Butch betrayed Marcellus. Marcellus wants him dead. And yet in the basement, facing something worse than either of them, they become allies. They become human to each other. This is the alchemical secret of the basement. The descent into the lowest point strips away everything false. The hierarchy, the grudges, the ego, the power. In the basement, Marcellus is not the king of the underworld. He's just a man. And Butch is not the betrayer. He's just a man. And men, stripped of everything false, can recognize each other. Butch could have run. He had his chance. He was free. But he went back. He descended back into the basement to save his enemy. And in doing so, he saved himself. This is the hero's descent and return, the catabasis, the journey to the underworld and back, and you can only make the return journey if you bring something back with you. Butch brings back his honor, his humanity, his soul. The basement is the lowest point of the film, the darkest moment, the place where everything is stripped away, and it's exactly where the most important transformation happens. It always is. The Gold Watch. Butch Coolidge's father died in a Vietnamese prison camp. And before he died, he hid a gold watch in the most undignified place imaginable. And then a fellow prisoner carried that watch home in the same undignified place for years. And then he gave it to Butch. This is one of the most absurd, most hilarious, most deeply moving sequences in the film, and it's loaded with occult symbolism. The gold watch is time. Literally, it measures time, it tracks the hours, it marks the passage of moments, but it's also legacy. It's the chain of masculine inheritance. Father to son to son to son, the unbroken line of a family's honor passed down through generations. Gold is the alchemical metal of completion, of the great work achieved, of the soul purified. The gold watch is the family's spiritual inheritance, their accumulated honor, their soul made material, and it was hidden in the body, in the most physical, most material, most undignified part of the body, because that's where the sacred always hides. In the profane, in the embarrassing, in the place you'd least expect to find something holy. The watch survived the prison camp, survived the war, survived years of indignity, because true gold cannot be destroyed. True honor cannot be extinguished. No matter how deep you bury it, no matter how much darkness surrounds it, the gold remains gold, and Butch almost loses it. He escapes from Marcellus. He's free. He has his money. He has his girlfriend. He has his life. And then he realizes he left the watch behind, and he goes back. This is the moment of choice, the moment that defines Butch's entire arc. He could let it go. It's just a watch, it's just a thing, but it isn't. It's his father, it's his grandfather, it's every man in his family who chose honor over comfort, who chose dignity over survival, who chose the gold over the easy path. And then there's the weapon choice. When Butch goes back to the pawn shop, when he finds Marcellus in the basement, he has options: a hammer, a baseball bat, a chainsaw, and a katana. He chooses the katana, the samurai sword, the weapon of the warrior class, the weapon of honor, the weapon that requires discipline, training, and intention. Not the blunt force of the hammer, not the brutality of the chainsaw, the precise, honorable, ancient weapon of the warrior who fights with purpose. Butch chooses the katana because he's not just saving Marcellus. He's declaring who he is. He's choosing his identity. He's picking up the gold watch and the samurai sword in the same moment. The legacy of his fathers and the weapon of the honorable warrior. Pride is what made him take the fight. Pride is what made him betray Marcellus. But honor is what made him go back. And the difference between pride and honor is the difference between the ego and the soul. Pride takes, honor gives. Pride runs, honor returns. Pride chooses the chainsaw, honor chooses the katana. The gold watch is ticking, and Butch finally understands what time it is. The overdose scene. Mia Wallace snorts heroin thinking it's cocaine. She overdoses. She dies. And then Vincent Vega stabs her in the heart with an adrenaline shot and she comes back to life. On the surface, this is a tense, darkly comedic scene about the consequences of drug use. Underneath, it's a death and resurrection myth. A goddess dying and being reborn. A sacred ritual disguised as a medical emergency. Mia is the goddess archetype. She's the queen of the underworld, Marcellus's wife. The feminine divine trapped in the material world, owned by the god of war, surrounded by violence and power and darkness. But she herself is something else, something lighter, something that doesn't quite belong in this world. She wants to dance, she wants to talk, she wants to connect. She draws a square in the air and asks Vincent if he's comfortable with silence. She's looking for something real in a world of surfaces. She's the goddess searching for her true nature in the kingdom of the false god. And she dies. She touches the darkness too directly, she reaches for the wrong thing, she mistakes the poison for the pleasure, and she dies. But she comes back. The adrenaline shot to the heart is the most literal resurrection image in cinema. The heart stops. The heart starts. Death and life separated by a single needle, a single moment of decision, a single act of desperate grace. And when Mia comes back, she's different. She's been somewhere. She's seen something. She doesn't talk about it. She can't talk about it. But you can see it in her eyes. The goddess has been to the underworld and returned, and she carries that knowledge with her. Now let's talk about the dance scene. Before the overdose. Before the darkness. Mia and Vincent dance at Jack Rabbit Slim's, the twist contest. And this scene is a ritual. In sacred traditions around the world, dance is prayer. Dance is communion. Dance is the body speaking the language of the soul, the whirling dervishes of Sufism, the ecstatic dance of the Dionysian mysteries, the sacred hoop dance of the Lakota. Dance as the physical expression of spiritual truth. Mia and Vincent dance and something happens between them. Not romance, not seduction. Something more fundamental. Two souls recognizing each other across the darkness. Two people for one moment completely present, completely alive, completely real, and then the night turns dark, and the goddess dies, and the hitman saves her, and neither of them will ever be quite the same. The overdose scene is the dark night of the goddess, the death that precedes the rebirth, the descent that makes the return possible, and the trophy they win at the dance contest. The trophy for the twist is a symbol of the prize that comes from the sacred dance, from the ritual, from the moment of true connection. The goddess danced. The goddess died. The goddess returned. The eternal feminine cycle playing out in a Los Angeles apartment while a nervous hitman holds an adrenaline needle and prays to a god he doesn't believe in yet. The miracle in the apartment. 6 bullets. Point-blank range. A man steps out of the bathroom and empties his gun at Jules and Vincent. 6 shots, 6 chances to kill them, and every single bullet misses. Jules and Vincent are standing still. They're not moving, they're not dodging, the shooter is close enough to touch them, and every bullet hits the wall behind them. Vincent calls it a freak occurrence, a statistical anomaly, a lucky break. He goes back to work. He picks up his gun. He finishes the job. He moves on. Jules cannot move on, because Jules recognizes what happened. Jules has been quoting Ezekiel 25:17 his whole career, using it as a threat, as a performance, as the last thing people hear before he kills them. He thought it was just words. Just a cool thing to say. Just the role he plays in the Devil's Theater. But in that apartment, with 6 bullets in the wall behind him, Jules understands for the first time what the words actually mean. This is divine intervention. This is grace. This is the universe reaching into the devil's playground and saying, not these two, not today, not like this. And the miracle doesn't change Vincent. Vincent sees the same thing Jules sees and chooses not to see it. He rationalizes. He minimizes. He protects his worldview from the intrusion of the divine. Because if he admits the miracle is real, he has to admit that everything else is real too. The soul in the briefcase. The 666 on the combination. The devil's playground he's been living in his whole life. Vincent can't afford to see it, so he doesn't. But Jules sees it. And Jules cannot unsee it. And this is the moment the film has been building toward since the first frame. The moment when a man in the devil's playground looks up and sees the light breaking through. This is the occult secret of the miracle. It's not about the bullets. It's about perception. 2 men experience the same event. One sees a statistical anomaly. One sees the hand of God. And that difference in perception determines everything that follows. Vincent goes back to work. Vincent dies in a bathroom with his pants down, shot by a boxer he was supposed to be watching, because he ignored the sign, because he chose the comfortable blindness over the terrifying truth. Jules walks away. Jules puts down his gun. Jules steps off the wheel of karma and chooses a different path, because he saw the miracle and let it change him. The miracle in the apartment is the pivot point of the entire film, the moment when grace enters the devil's playground. And the question Tarantino is asking is the oldest question in theology. When God speaks, do you listen? Ezekiel 25:17 and Jules' transformation. The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides by the inequities of the selfish and the tyranny of evil men. Blessed is he who in the name of charity and goodwill shepherds the weak through the valley of darkness, for he is truly his brother's keeper and the finder of lost children. And I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to poison and destroy my brothers. And you will know my name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon thee. Jules Winfield has been saying these words his whole career, and he's been lying. Not intentionally, but completely. Because the real Ezekiel 25:17 is about God's judgment on the enemies of Israel. It's a short verse, it doesn't contain most of what Jules recites. Tarantino wrote his own version, his own scripture, his own transmission. and Jules has been using it as a weapon, as theater, as the performance of divine authority in the service of the devil. He speaks the words of God while doing the work of Marcellus Wallace. He invokes righteousness while committing murder. He wears the costume of the prophet while serving the false god. This is the false prophet archetype, the one who speaks truth without living it, who knows the words but not the meaning, who performs the sacred without understanding the sacred, and then the miracle happens. And Jules hears his own words for the first time. Blessed is he who in the name of charity and goodwill shepherds the weak through the valley of darkness. Jules has been the valley of darkness. Jules has been the tyranny of evil men. Jules has been the thing the righteous man protects the weak from. And in the diner, in the final scene, Jules has a choice. Honey Bunny and Pumpkin are robbing the place. Jules has his gun. He could kill them both in seconds. He could finish his breakfast and walk out. He could be Vincent. Instead, he shepherds them. He talks Pumpkin down. He gives him the money from the briefcase. He lets them go. He becomes, for the first time, what he's been pretending to be his whole career. The righteous man, the shepherd, the finder of lost children. Jules' transformation is the spiritual climax of the entire film. It's the answer to every question the movie asks. What does grace look like in the devil's playground? It looks like a hitman putting down his gun in a diner and choosing to shepherd instead of slaughter. And Jules calls himself a shepherd in training. He doesn't claim to be enlightened. He doesn't claim to have arrived. He knows he's at the beginning of something, not the end. The miracle didn't make him a saint. It made him a seeker. And that's the most honest thing the film says about spiritual transformation. It doesn't happen all at once. It doesn't make you perfect. It just makes you willing. Willing to try, willing to change, willing to put down the gun and walk into the unknown. Jules walks out of the diner and into the rest of his life. We don't know what happens next. Tarantino doesn't show us, because that's not the point. The point is the choice, the moment of turning, the instant when the false prophet becomes the true seeker. The path of the righteous man begins with a single step away from the valley of darkness. Jules takes that step. Tarantino's feet obsession. We need to talk about the feet. If you've watched enough Tarantino films, you've noticed it. The feet. They're everywhere. Close-ups of bare feet, feet on dashboards, feet on tables, feet being worshipped, discussed, displayed. In Pulp Fiction alone, Mia's feet are featured prominently. The foot massage debate is a central plot point. Uma Thurman's feet are on the poster. This is not accidental. This is not a quirk. This is a signature, an occult fingerprint. A deliberate symbolic language that Tarantino has been speaking across his entire filmography. So what does it mean? In many spiritual traditions, the feet are the most sacred part of the body. Not the head, not the heart, the feet. Because the feet are the point of contact between the human and the divine, between the body and the earth, between the material and the spiritual. In Hindu tradition, touching the feet of a guru is the highest form of respect. The feet of the divine are where the blessing flows from. The feet of the teacher contain the wisdom of the path. To touch them is to receive transmission. In Christianity, Jesus washes the feet of his disciples, the most humble act, the most sacred act, the teacher serving the student, the divine honoring the human, the feet as the site of grace. In Egyptian tradition, the soles of the feet were inscribed with the names of enemies so that the pharaoh could walk on them eternally. The feet as power, as dominion, as the expression of authority over the material world. And in Kabbalah, the feet correspond to the Sephirot of Malkuth, the kingdom, the material world, the earth. The feet are where the divine touches the ground, where the infinite becomes finite, where spirit becomes matter. Tarantino's obsession with feet is a constant reminder of this threshold, of the place where the human meets the earth, where the spiritual meets the material, where the divine walks in the world. But there's another layer. The foot massage debate between Jules and Vincent is one of the most famous scenes in the film, and it's a theological debate disguised as a conversation about massage. Is it okay to touch another man's wife's feet? Is it a transgression? Is it sacred? Is it profane? Jules and Vincent argue about it with the intensity of Talmudic scholars debating scripture. Because in Tarantino's world, it is scripture. The feet are sacred. And who gets to touch them, and how and why, is a question of spiritual authority. Vincent touches Mia's feet metaphorically all night. He dances with her. He saves her life. He crosses the line that Jules warned him about. Not sexually, spiritually. He enters into a sacred exchange with the goddess and doesn't know how to handle it. Because Vincent doesn't understand the sacred, he only understands the cool. And then there's the poster. Uma Thurman's feet. The image that sold the film to the world. Before you knew anything about the story. Before you knew the characters. You saw the feet. And the cigarette. And the gun. The sacred and the profane in a single image. Tarantino was telling you from the very first moment. This film is about the threshold. About the place where the human touches the divine. About what happens when the sacred walks through the profane world. The feet are the signature. The occult fingerprint. The reminder that even in the devil's playground, even in the world of 666 and soul-stealing briefcases and basement gimps and divine miracles, the divine is always touching the ground, always walking among us, always leaving footprints. Pulp Fiction is not a film about crime. It's a film about the soul, about the thin line between damnation and grace, about what happens when the divine reaches into the devil's playground and offers a second chance. We decoded 10 secrets today. The non-linear structure as the wheel of karma, the briefcase as the stolen soul, the 666 as the devil's fingerprint, the names as occult signatures, the basement as the inferno, the gold watch as the inheritance of honor, the overdose as the goddess's death and rebirth, the miracle as divine intervention, JULES'S transformation as the false prophet becoming the true seeker, and Tarantino's feet as the sacred threshold between the human and the divine. Every secret connects. Every symbol reinforces the others, because Pulp Fiction is a complete initiatory system, a modern mystery school, a Gnostic gospel disguised as a crime film. So here's what I want you to do. Watch it again. Tonight if you can. But watch it differently. Watch it as a spiritual text. Watch it as a map. Watch it as a transmission from a filmmaker who encoded 30 years of occult knowledge into a film about hitmen and hamburgers. Then come back and tell me, which secret changed the way you see the film? Which symbol are you still thinking about? Drop it in the comments, let's decode this together. And if you want more of this, if you want to go deeper into the occult secrets hidden in cinema, subscribe to Occult Cinema, because we're just getting started. Next we go deeper, into films that hide even older secrets, even darker symbols, even more dangerous truths. Until then, keep watching, keep seeking, keep looking beneath the surface. The divine is always hiding in plain sight.